So remember, job is to recon it. They're not 100% sure about workers. Okay, so you're gonna recon it, and then you're gonna mark your warm zone at 0.5, and then your hot zone at 10. If you can do an immediate fix the problem, and then just report back. Okay.
We're finishing up our last day, working on 40 hours of training for hazardous materials response. Specifically, we're training these folks to the technician level, which will allow them to enter what we would call the hot zone, or where a release is occurring, and mitigate the problem. Definitely a book component to the training to build a base of knowledge for the students, but also a very important part of the hands-on training. When the students leave the classroom, we want them to feel comfortable that they could operate at an actual hazardous materials incident. It can be a little overwhelming. It's a labor-intensive physical job, but at the same time, you need to have a good head on your shoulder, so you're looking around and processing the information that's being presented to you, and be able to take the appropriate action.
I got nothing to tell.
We've brought chemical protective clothing that we work with the first day and get students comfortable wearing that. We bring air monitoring equipment with, so the students can use that to gather information that would help them protect the public, and also let them know when they've crossed a line where their protective equipment will not work for them any longer and they need to exit the area.
Okay, your meter says 0.5.
What?
Your meter says 0.5.
Here's the 0.5?
Yep.
We have simulators that will allow us to show the students different liquid and gas leaks, and we work on solutions to stop those leaks or those spills.
I think there's a number of reasons why we want to do training like this. I mean, we can talk about the didactic, we can talk about book learning, classroom learning, but until you actually apply these skills, some of those values, those concepts, are really not seated. So in order to actually get into the suits, identify the problems that you are likely to see when you actually respond, it's going to give us a better outcome from a training perspective. So it was important to bring people in that not only had the requisite knowledge, but it was also important to be able to have the equipment that they would likely see on this scene. I think another important thing to note is, although we might not have all of this equipment in the city of Fitchburg, it's important for us to know what the next steps are. So there's a couple of different layers as far as hazmat response goes: the awareness, the operational, and the technical. Right now they're going through technician level training, and not all departments are equipped to handle that training, but it's important for us to know what that application actually looks like, so that if we need it, we know who to call, and we can be of better assistance to those resources that come into our city.
All right, you're at 2 parts per million. 2.
All right, going the right direction.
pH paper's turning red.
Right.
You are getting hits.
Coming down. Feels like there's something behind the door. Take a look.
We simulated a chlorine release in a well house, a water well house, with a person that was overcome by chemical fumes that they didn't know about heading into the incident. And they found the person and then had to react and redirect their resources to take care of that person and bring them to safety and get them medical care. All the while knowing that there still was an active chemical release going on inside that building that they would have to go back in and eventually take care of. Chemicals are prevalent all over the state of Wisconsin and really our country. and they're transported on the highway, over water, and by rail. And unfortunately, every once in a while, accidents will happen, and we need to be prepared to respond. Some of the common chemicals that fire departments will be put up against will be carbon monoxide, propane, ammonia, and chlorine, and then your things like gasoline and diesel fuel.
I think the important thing to note from a response standpoint is regardless of the emergency, we are going to be there. If somebody's having a bad day, they dial 911, we are going to be there. We have to have some assembly of a response. So it may not be the overall need for the incident in order to bring it to conclusion, but we can at least then start the incident and do it in a way that makes sense so that additional resources that are coming in don't have to redo what we've started. So it's important to start from that awareness, operational and technical level, and follow it in that order, and to identify where those resources are coming from and how much of a response liability you have locally. And that is primarily what we're trying to do right now, is give us enough skill to be able to respond to anything that we come in contact with, and to identify what those next steps are so that we can hopefully bring the incident to a positive conclusion.
Yeah, the state has a tiered response system for hazardous materials. It starts at the local level with firefighters here in Fitchburg that go through training and are prepared to work at incidents. And as the incidents go beyond their resources or capabilities, they're able to work their way up to a tiered system to get to a larger fire department like Madison that can come and provide assistance.
Here's the thing, is when you train on something, you're more likely to see those things where they can be applied. So without training, sometimes you respond, you do things that ultimately get you by. What we're doing right now is we're allowing our firefighters to see what the actual application looks like, so that they're not just getting by, they're actually doing it in a way that is safer and in a way that makes the most sense to any other resources that are coming into the city. So, as far as the risk, we've done a risk assessment in this city. It's something that we continually do and something that I'm trying to improve our process on. But with development comes a number of different things. Development not only brings the potential of hazmat, you could have one ruptured gas line and now you're dealing with a hazmat incident. But we're also dealing with things like trench rescue, collapse rescue. We've had new construction in this city that has collapsed during the construction, because the two most vulnerable points of development and construction or a building's lifespan is when the building is being constructed and when it's being demolished. And we're seeing that all the time in the city of Fitchburg. Not to mention trench. Anytime you dig a lateral, a water lateral, a gas lateral to a building, you're creating a trench. And we're seeing more and more where workers are actually working within a shore box or those types of things. It's not uncommon for somebody to make a mistake, work outside their shore box, and now they've got a collapse of the trench. Those are things that we need to be ready for. So everything that we're doing, are we an all-inclusive department? I think what we are is we're an all-hazards department that should know where our resources are, and then we need to work with our neighboring communities so that we have a regional response so that it doesn't overwhelm any one municipality. And I think that's a good explanation of what we're trying to do here and with our technical rescue training. So what makes a good firefighter, regardless of municipality, is one who is constantly learning their trade. That really goes for any occupation, but in firefighting, if you don't learn your trade, you could become seriously injured or worse. So what I'm trying to do is to identify exactly how important regular training is. And we've got a good group in the city of Fitchburg. I don't necessarily have to do a whole lot as the fire chief. We have people who are conscientious of the fact that regular training makes a better firefighter. A firefighter that is looking for answers instead of problems, or at least answers to the problems that we have. Those are the types of firefighters that any fire department would be happy to have. So we're fortunate. We've got a good group here, a number of people who volunteered for this training, people who haven't had it in the past, and we're trying to take those that have actually volunteered for this training or are moving forward with this training to challenge the things that we're doing locally right now to make sure that we do have the best response, and if needed, what we need to change our response to address the changing environment that is consistent in emergency services.
Yeah, my message to the students that when we end that this is a beginning, it's not an end. There's all kinds of different chemicals that are out there, and all different types of protective equipment that we're going to be using. You have to continue to learn something new every day and work to perfect your craft, so when you arrive on the scene of an incident, you have skill.
The city of Fitchburg is a growing community. As it grows, services are obviously needed. We're fortunate enough to have a department that works with other city departments to make things happen, and we need to be aware of how a growing municipality impacts how we deliver our service and what is needed. So I'm grateful to be in a growing community, but at the same time, it presents its own set of challenges in order to keep up with the overall need and the overall vision for the fire department and for the city of Fitchburg.